I'm into this matchup. Like I'm actually kind of excited to see this matchup. It feels like Chris is going to have to be very careful with his life total because playing against walking ballistas and arcbound ravagers, he could very easily, I think, fall to too low of a life total and get machine gunned out.
Yeah, it does feel like this is going to be one of the matchups where you really have to navigate how to use your life total as a resource and can't just willy-nilly go for fetch, shock, thoughtseize, dismember, etc. Which all of those cards are going to be good, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I can't necessarily call a winner right now.
I'm interested to see kind of which list Chris is playing to. If he's playing kind of the all-out zoo sort of four-color shadow, or if it's the traverse the Ulvenwald, kind of maybe a little bit more consistent four-color, slower four-color shadow.
I'm guessing we're going all out aggro here. That seems to be the list that's been putting up most results recently. I think we're on Teamer Battle Rage, Become Immense, Wild Nicodle.
Not an awesome start on Alex Satterley's side.
Yeah, Forest Welding Jar. Maybe Chris thinks that they're playing a mirror and, or sorry, not a mirror. Maybe Chris is probably thinks, who knows? There's that Sultai Wur deck,
Well,
but oh,
interesting.
the jig is up right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And interesting that Chris fetched an Overgrown Tomb. So, you know, his Nicatl is currently not getting pumped at all. I think every time I've watched, excuse me, anybody play this deck, they've talked about how fetching the correct lands is one of the most difficult elements of the deck.
Well, we can get a Sacred Foundry with this Windswept Heath. I spent a fair amount of time when Gataxian Probe was still legal at the end of that era playing this four-color zoo list, which it Probe added another layer of explosiveness to the deck, and then also you could see when it was safe to combo. But the hardest part about the deck was all your fetches don't get all your lands, and you have to sequence potential colors that you might want to play, especially when you're playing Wild Nicodle, Thoughtseize, and Become Immense plus Battle Rage. It gets really complicated, and you can turn yourself off of getting the colors you need and playing efficiently, and that was what would take the longest in terms of decision-making process. But we did get a Thoughtseize there. We saw a couple of Ravengers. One of those gets taken, and we come in for 3.
I'll regen it.
Okay, we're regenerating the Hangerback Walker on 1. I think I see another Lightning Bolt hanging out in Chris's hand.
So Alex probably really hoping to draw a land here so that he could actually deploy a threat and also pump the hanger back. But he's not moving very quickly, so my guess is that he did not draw a land.
I do see another Lightning Bolt hanging out in Chris's hand, I think, and usually the four-color Shadow list are on 2 Lightning Bolts. You have any good, interesting spoiler talk while I was looking for a match?
Oh yeah, we had some back and forth, Doge and I, about Finale of Promise, which is that one that's double red and X, and it lets you cast an instant and a sorcery from your graveyard. He had to do a little convincing.
I think it's modern playable.
I was not super convinced.
Okay, well we'll talk about that in between rounds. I look forward to throwing in a 2 cents there, but we do get a Ravager hanging out for Alex, but missed on that 3rd land drop. And Nakalo coming in for 3.
Probably just got to take it here, huh? Or do you block?
I think Chris might be wanting a block, and then there
block
is
sack.
Well, there's also a Teamer Battle Rage in Chris's hand too. All right, Alex going down to 12, and we get a 3/3 Death Shadow.
This feels like Chris has a great mix of cards, and Alex is just seeing mono 2 drop.
And also with Alex not having a walking ballista, Chris can get pretty aggressive here, having that Teamer Battle Rage in hand.
Darksteel Citadel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably somewhere between 7 and 9 is going to be the sweet spot for Chris.
Throne of Geth.
All right, we get a Throne of Geth.
And do I have to block? I guess so. I'll pass turn.
So the largest that we can, the most amount of counters that we can put on Ravager right now is going to be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So Ravager would be a 5/5. Let's say Chris does something like Lightning Bolt, Fetch Shock, and Lightning Bolt themselves. So now they're going to 7, and then if they go to 4, and then they have that Teamer Battle Rage, that will be a 9/9 double striker. So that would be lethal.
So you're saying there's no chance?
Chris definitely has lethal right now. If there's I'm pretty sure there's both a Lightning Bolt and a Battle Rage in hand.
And Alex has to take 1 to pump that.
Oh, I think I see a Gore Clan Rampager too. Is that?
First strike, but if it's ferocious, they get double strike and trample.
Alex aware of Teamer Battle Rage's existence, but just double checking that he knows that
Alex
it
was
could in fact kill him.
Alex was asking Chris what Teamer Battle Rage does.
Currently an 8/8.
Chris being a gentleman.
So I guess I'll tap Throne of Geth, sacrifice Darksteel Citadel, proliferate, and I will lock and lock.
Okay.
Any effects?
Yes.
Alex asked if there are any effects.
He sounded so sad when he asked it too.
Uh,
Okay, I'll tap and pay a life, going to 11 to put a counter on here.
Sure.
So it'd still be
So it'll be
8.
8 minus 3 is 5, and then it'll be 8 after that, so 13.
Yep, and there's. Oh, I got it. Before damage, also, I will. Sack
Ooh, so he's
Throne of
gonna
Geth to the Ravager
load
to
everything onto the hanger back
Sack Ravager to itself and modular.
to live. Ooh, Travis.
So currently that would make it so 8, so it would hit you for
We
2,
get
and then 8, which is that. So I'll blood rush this on Chris.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
right.
there was no way out of that unless
Yeah, so
the card was
it's
Path to
supposed to be
Exile.
12 and then 12 again.
Okay, sounds good.
I like that Alex found a way though, with just the Battle Rage out there. And if Chris had not had a follow-up, he was going to end up with 6 tokens and a walking ballista that he could have played next turn for lethal.
I love Gore Clan Rampager. I have not. I played that card when I was on 4-color Shadow with Gataxian Probe. And I could see, since Chris is playing Gore Clan Rampager, I could see there being a 1 or 2 of Traverse in the main deck as well, because Traverse is a cool way to go find up that trample effect when you really need it.
There is the Gore Clan Rampager.
And that was in the Return to Ravnica block. I remember playing that in Standard. It was fun.
Looks like Gate Crash.
And you can just cast it for a 4/4 Trampler, which isn't nothing sometimes. It's all Hooting Mandrill stats right there. As far as sideboard goes, Usually there's the package in Death Shadow that you side out of some of your combo, like your Become Immense Battle Rage, to go into a more resilient game plan. I feel like Chris is going to keep in the combo here. You do have to race Alex. Maybe there is some swapping out of like hand disruption type effects here, perhaps removal. Um, Maybe some braids or something like that comes in. I haven't seen a list recently of with the sideboard for this 4-color shadow list. So I'm unsure what's in the 15 in the side.
Let's take a look. Some blueless shadow. So it looks like possible
Oh, face shield.
face
That's
shield. Fatal push seems okay. Ancient grudge seems great. Hooting mandrills.
Hooting Mandrills is usually to side in, and when you're taking out some of your Become Immenses, which I don't think you're going to do in this matchup.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so I could see the pushes seem like the only real pushes, and grudge seem like the only real wins here.
Yeah. I think if you're on Chris's side, you have a good game plan. You don't want to dilute it too much, you know. You don't want to fall into that classic over sideboarding.
As far as Alex is concerned, I saw Alex with the potentially a white splash. Couldn't quite tell. It seems like sometimes these Hardened Scale decks are splashing black for Assassin's Trophy, etc. Sometimes they're splashing white, so you get sideboard cards like Rest in Peace or Stony Silence plus Path to Exile, and sometimes they're not splashing anything except for having the Horizon Canopy for the card draw. I'm kind of putting Alex on not splashing a color, so sideboard options that seem kind of limited if you're not. Then you just have green cards and like maybe Dismembers, which Dismember is, I'd probably bring that in.
So Travis, thoughts on the GP Sao Paulo top 8?
It seems like Phoenix. I haven't looked at the deck list, but seeing that 2 humans are at 2nd and 3rd, and Phoenix is at 6th and 7th, I'd imagine that Phoenix list have shaved or cut all the gut shots, and that humans, when Phoenix isn't playing gut shots, has a decent Phoenix matchup.
I'll play.
Oh, your intuition is good, Travis.
Yeah.
Looks like no gut shots, 2 surgical in the 6th place deck. And the 7th place deck also no gut shots.
Yeah, so if I feel like I would choose the human side of that matchup if we're not on gut shot. Plus Anafinza, if it's being played, seems just generally a good beater and has great synergies against graveyard decks. But we see Tron taking it all down, so that's.
I think Tron's in a good spot. I think it only gets in a better spot with the London Mulligan rule. So I think, you know, it for a while Tron was just kind of flying under the radar. But I think at this point, if you're not coming prepared for Tron, you're making a mistake.
And we get a Inkmoth into Arcbound Worker for Alex on turn 1. Chris following it up with Bloodstained Mire into Blood Crypt, a Thoughtseize, and a Mishra's Bauble. So that's also a really interesting point of interaction. I feel like this deck has a more challenging, how do you use the Bauble in your fetch lands for pseudo scries with yourself, but we might, curious if we're going to see Chris with the Bauble on Alex, so he has full information. But we do see 2 Ballistas and a Darksteel Citadel hanging out in Alex's hand.
Citadel. Swing for 1. 14. Ballista, pass.
Chris going down to 14, and the first of at least 2 Ballistas are deployed.
Yeah, so it feels like Alex has decided that he has to be the aggressor here. He's not going to sit around and play around Chris not being able to ping himself down to Death Shadow range to be able to play it. He's just trying to get as much damage as he can as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it feels like that could be something you would do against Grixis Shadow, especially if you have a card like Dismember to tag a Delve threat, but against this 4-color Shadow list, they're playing a lot of other creatures that cost 1 mana that can just attack, so you do have to kill them in an efficient manner, because they'll just do a zoo thing against you if you don't do that. And for Chris, maybe thinking about getting the basic Forest, but we get a Stomping Ground, so Wild Nacatl will still only be a 2/2.
Some of the
2/2's big enough to block the worker or the ballista in this case.
I'll shoot you for 1.
Bolt on Ballista, and it's going to ping Chris for 1,
no shadow.
Sure.
and a 3/3 Shadow. Dismember would be really good right now if Alex happened to side that in,
Citadel.
because that would get around even a Street Wraith.
Right. But it does not look like he has it. What's he sitting on? A couple ballistas and a worker?
Ballista on 1.
Yep.
Pass.
Kind of an anemic start for Alex here. Maybe missing the green or missing a big payoff card.
Yeah, both of his draws have felt not awesome for this deck.
It seems like they have lands and spells, but they're kind of the least impactful spells. Like, you really want to have a Hardened Scales when you're on the Ballista Arcbound Worker train, because otherwise they're not very impressive stats on a creature for their mana cost.
Yeah, you need that, or you need like a Steel Overseer to live, to be able to actually make use of a bunch of
Or even a
1/1s.
Ravager would work fine in that situation, but just to not have any of those, like no of the 1 or 2 mana payoff spells.
Chris pretty fearlessly going down to 7 here.
But yeah, chat saying Throne of Geth, which is works really well with those artifact lands as well as another payoff spell. If I'm Alex, I would say this is I would probably block and then move a counter at this point.
Oh yeah, I'm totally in.
I'll block with the worker.
This is the sort of thing where you don't know when you're going to have any profitable blocks against a creature that big, and you know, if you can force him to have 2 Teamer Battle Rages to get damage through, then you're probably in a good
So there are
spot.
2/2s currently?
2 not quite powered up Wild Nacatls there.
And it's interesting, Chris could have, I believe he could have fetched to make them 3/3s.
6/6.
Currently a 6/6.
Yeah, we
Let's go.
Maybe
could
he's
have gotten a
holding
Temple
up.
Garden there.
Stirrings?
If Temple Garden is in the deck, some lists don't play Temple Garden.
Ah,
Because it really, the white is literally just for Wild Nacatl. And maybe some sideboard cards.
gotcha.
Face Shield, but I think when I was playing the deck back in the day, you'd play like Lingering Souls and
Reveal.
some other white cards on the
Archon.
board. We're going to get a Ravager revealed off of Ancient
Chat, you
Stirrings.
so smart.
And
uh,
do you have a bolt? Is the question. I think
a pretty good update on the mana base from chat. Always getting our backs. Appreciate that. Hopefully going to get Cardboard Live up here in the next couple of weeks so that we will know what all the contents of the players' decks are.
activate Archon to sack Archon Worker.
Then we can sound like idiots slightly less.
Then its ability resolves. Sack Citadel.
Ooh,
Sack Citadel.
we're going. Alex is going all in here. Does
So-
Chris have the push or bolt?
Sack
I love this.
Ravager to itself. Modular.
At 20. He's at 20, just going all in.
Okay.
Wow.
Oh, okay. That
I can appreciate that.
was sweet.
Hardened Scales with just such an anemic looking draw. Still managing to pull it out to the extent that there are 7 genes that are amazed.
I hope Jinju is watching this right now.
Me too.
This is one of our emotes that is the manager of the Magic counter here at Guardian Games. We may have stolen a picture off of Facebook
Maybe.
and made an emote out of it.
Maybe. Allegedly. I don't actually know who Seb McKinnon is, so
Yeah, I follow I read Decklist pretty regularly and I play a lot of Modern, but there's not a lot of individual players or Twitter feeds that I follow with Magic so much. So I've haven't kept up with the recent 4-color shadow list. And
he did Assassin's Trophy.
Sebakinden looks like
Bedevil.
Mulligan.
pretty cool art going on there.
He did the promo Abrupt Decay. I do like the promo Abrupt Decay. Yeah, I think his stuff's good. I think, I think both Travis and I are big fans of Rebecca Guay.
Yeah,
Did I
that
say
is
her
very
name
true.
right?
Rebecca Guay is my favorite artist. I know I did used to love step links in that deck. That was always enabled some pretty crazy turn 2s and 3s. Okay, Chris on the mulligan and cycling a Street Wraith. But to be honest, I like old bordered cards and I like older art, and I was teaching a friend to play Magic, and actually it's funny, this is a couple years ago, I was teaching her with this 4-color shadow list, and she played a Wild Nicodle and said, that cat has breast, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I looked at the art and I'd never seen the fact that, yeah, it's definitely a female figured cat, because a lot of times Magic cards are just text box to me. But I do appreciate that the art is a part of Magic that people are really into, and I like at events like artists hanging out.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of artists hanging out. I think it's in a game that has the history that Magic does, I think it's really big to have artists that have stuck with it and kind of seen the changes and carried their own style throughout the history of such a long game. Chris, no fear. Dealing himself 10 damage by turn 2.
Well, to be fair, Alex has just played a Welding Jar and a Graft Land.
Well, his draw last game also looked sad. I'll just say that.
I did love just going for it there as with Alex in that last game, because it doesn't seem like you're winning if you don't.
Agreed.
Oh, here comes Hootie.
I think this card is most of the time a strictly worse Gurmag Angler.
It has trample.
Yeah. I like it a lot more than Gurmag Angler, but
I feel like you're maybe coming at this from like a Legacy Rug Delver standpoint.
that's probably true.
You're like, this isn't as good as what you're doing.
4/4s in Legacy for one just aren't good enough.
I do like the idea of card alters, and if I suddenly was given a bunch of money, I would probably get humorous alters. Like, definitely have a 90s picture of Hootie and the Blowfish on a playset of Hooting Mandrills.
Oh, I like that.
Get a Hardened Scales, which is how some things can start off here for Alex.
Everybody in chat, again trying to make me eat my words with their logic.
Is this a trigger?
When it comes into play.
So in
yeah.
response to you targeting it,
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to go out.
This still has
Oh.
a counter.
this is on the stack, the ability.
I'm going to go out because
I
this is
actually
going to be a
have it
judge
set for
call.
Even if this were to die, this doesn't lose the counter.
These are some of Travis's favorite moments.
The corrupt ability goes on a stack, but then if you
He's explaining
doesn't have anywhere to move, so the counter is going to
that
stay on
the ability goes on the stack, but when it's killed, if it's killed in response, the counter has nowhere to go, so it actually stays on the land.
How many cards do you have?
We got 4.
Okay, there we go. So took care of that one. Basically how it works is like you get an ETB trigger, but if Chris kills the worker in response, the counter has nowhere to go, so it is going to stay on the land.
Back to 4.
Player blocks.
Team or battle range.
That gives it double strike
And it already has trample.
trample. Yeah.
Double strike.
Um,
Do you welding jar here?
I think you welding jar here.
Yeah, I think 4 counters is quite a bit to be able to
I
move
believe how
around
this
later.
works, I take 4.
Yep.
And Alex is going to take 4 here.
Your turn.
Kind of expected just one or both of them to run over each other, but these have been interesting matches.
Looks like we have Alex has the Ancient Stirrings in hand and perhaps some other spells, and kind of thinking, do I cast the Stirrings to be mana efficient and nab a land so I can cast my other spells and then perhaps double spell the following turn? Or do I just cast a 2-drop? And we get the 2-drop.
And a target to move the counters to, I think, very importantly.
And
I actually really like Alex's position here.
Alex is thinking about attacking, but decides to pass. Perhaps to hold up the block to move the counters. Although, you know, it's hard to say what you're playing around and what the right move is. I kind of liked attacking.
I think the longer the game goes, the better chance Alex has of winning.
Okay.
Especially with the Hardened scales out. I think the individual impact of each of his cards is just going to be, on average, higher than what Chris is doing.
Well, this is a really engaging matchup to watch. It seems like both players have interesting decision trees.
Dismember. Paying 4 life is not a 6.
Ooh. All right, Chris tapping black.
Chris,
Just-
no fear.
Response. Lightning bolt.
Sure.
So Alex
Okay.
still ends up with 2 Thopters at the end of this.
We got a dismember in response to the modular trigger. We had a lightning bolt. And we get 2 Thopters.
And I, don't quote me, but I believe I saw Thoughtseize in Chris's hand, and he's getting to that point where it's pretty dangerous to go any lower life total wise.
Correct. I might also not even... It depends on what Alex plays the next turn, but we just might see that fetch land hanging out and not actually getting a land here.
Or fetching end of turn to get a tapped land.
I'm curious if it would even be worth the 1 point of damage that you're taking.
Yeah. That's true. Probably unlikely that Chris has anything that costs 3, and, you know, mana efficiency at this point is not really a...
Seems like chat says that Chris has a Become Immense in hand.
Ah.
Okay, take it back. We're probably fetching.
Yes.
I didn't quite eye that one. Okay, we get a Stirrings here for Alex. Okay, also I do want to point out cool tokens on Alex's side of the table.
Yeah.
And we always appreciate it here in coverage when folks bring their tokens. don't like just having random die hanging out on the playmats, and yeah.
Yeah, we love tokens, and we try not to be judgmental about a lot of things, but we will throw down if you don't have your tokens.
Yeah, we have to be a little. We have to hold back a little bit on land choices sometimes. But yeah, if you don't bring tokens, really, what are you doing?
Um,
I think I'm on the kind of only positive with land choices. I think there are a bunch that I like, and if
I'll go
you're doing
drop
something else with
that.
your lands, I'm totally fine with that too.
Do I go all in? I never know the answer. Dismember or bolt screws me here, so
Because I can appreciate doing something else to tilt, just to
we'll
tilt
bolt or
somebody.
dismember.
Just the look on their face when you play like a
Just bolt.
third, fourth edition white bordered mountain, and then like a Ravnica
Yeah,
Allegiance
because you have to pay one
swamp.
mana and then 4 more to cast it. Just that one would kill you at that point.
Yeah.
So
You
I
can see. Yeah.
okay. So 3
I
bolts
think
left
both
again.
players are discussing what
Yeah,
if
I'll
Alex
go
goes all in, what Chris could
combat.
have, and Chris is being helpful about letting Alex know what the options are.
Okay.
Does he go all in again?
Flop it,
He's
so
totally going to, isn't he? That's
sack Ravager to itself. Modular. Hardened scales makes it 5. Cool.
he gets there twice. No fear, Alex. Just goes in hard.
And yeah, for sideboards.
You
I'll
know,
go
you never make the shots you don't take.
Yeah. Yeah.
two dismembers.
Oh
and
man.
to like now.
I love a player that's just willing to just be like, eh, all right. You know, we've made some decisions to get us to this point. Like, do you have it?
We need to get Alex playing Infect here next week, and
Yes. Yeah. We love players that always go for it here in coverage.
Yeah, as someone who plays a lot of control in Modern, I try to make my opponent really fear going for it, and it is painful when they go for it, when you could have so many answers, but you have nothing.
Well, and you know, too, if they go for it and it works in, like, you know, match 2, then there's so much higher chance they're going to do it in match 3.
It does seem like through hearing the table talk and the banter that these folks had that Alex made a calculated decision when he was going for it that he would get blown out by certain cards, but thought it was worth it to go for the win, just giving Chris another chance to draw something, or then putting yourself in position where you block and there's like a battle rage, and then you're going to lose your whole board. Just having that chance to win is worth it to perhaps get blown out, because there's many other things that you could get blown out with if you just block.
Yeah, I think there's a way in Modern where kind of when you get to a middle point in knowledge where you start to play around things, sometimes you go way too overboard in trying to play around everything, and you get away from the fact that like you're also playing an explosive deck that can just, you know, can just go for it on your own side.
Okay, well, I'm going to leave everyone to stew with this. Maybe you could pull up another card. I'm going to see if we can get a match in here that's going to game 3. Let's find out what we can do.
All right, chat. Back we go to spoilers. What do we want to check out? Somebody toss a card out there.
Whoa. Yeah. God, that's nuts.
Ooh, I want to talk about
Yeah, no, thank you.
Feather the Redeemed. I want to see if anybody in chat thinks Feather the Redeemed is gonna see play. Give me a second here. I think this card is going to find a home. I think a 3-mana 3/4 with a relevant ability. I think there's got to be some sort of aggressive deck that this card could fit into.
But if you feel like it, do you want to come in and talk about the match? Because we're not in between anything, and we have like a couple minutes to fill?
I'm trying to think of what
Yeah,
I would say
I'm
about
I'm
it.
with you, Doge. You think, Cutie, that it's just commander? It's pretty cool. I do love 3-mana commanders,
Oh, he'd have some questions?
Yeah.
and
Sure.
this would be a really fun build around. Like, I think it would be the right power level for EDH.
No matches are in between anything, but I got Alex here to hang out.
All right,
Last match.
we get Alex in the booth to chat with us about how to always go for it.
Hang on to the headphones, and you're good to go. Raise your hand when you want to get let out too.
Okay. Always go for it.
Yeah, so you want to introduce yourself here?
Hey, I'm Alex Satterley. I was playing Hardened Scales there. That was my first win on camera, so that was exciting.
Yeah, so we saw you kind of, well, for both games 2 and 3, kind of like looking at the board a little bit and in those kind of final situations and just deciding to go for it. Were you, like, when you decide with that deck specifically to go for it, what's kind of going through your mind in those moments?
The first thing I think about is how likely it is that they have removal. In that case, I was worried about Lightning Bolt and Dismember. I decided to go for it there because Dismember wouldn't have actually answered my threats there. He had one untapped fetch land, and he was at 6 life, and I was attacking with 2 1/1s. So if he dismembered, he'd have to pay a life down to 5, pay 4 life to cast it, and he'd be at 1, and no matter which creature he killed, the other would kill him.
That's really smart. Totally did not notice that, but keep going.
So yeah, I thought the only thing that would really punish me there is Lightning Bolt, and he already had one in his graveyard, and with just 2 cards in his hand, I thought it would be a good time to go for it.
So are you generally kind of like an always go for it type of person, or are you more of like, I mean, this feels, we weren't sure exactly how calculated it was, but this feels quite calculated.
I actually try to play more reserved when I can, because the deck can grind out really well. And I also had Steel Overseers in my hand, which were good for grinding. So often, if my opponent has open mana and I know they play removal spells, I won't go for it, even if I have like Arcbound Ravager and the Hardened Scales and like a million creatures. I'll try not to overextend. But yeah, in those cases, the deck I was playing against was also super explosive and could kill me sort of out of nowhere. So that's why I chose to take initiative there.
Sure. And how long have you been on Hardened Scales for?
About 5 months or so.
And do you feel like for the Mythic Championship coming up, do you feel like it's going to be a well-positioned deck?
That's a good question. I think so. One of its toughest matchups is Blue-White Control, which has kind of fallen out of favor lately. So without that, I feel like it has a pretty good matchup against most of the rest of the field.
Totally. And it seems like, the London Mulligan rule, my guess is that it won't benefit blue-white control very much.
Yeah.
And so it may even push it out a little further. How's
That'd be
its
nice.
Tron matchup?
I actually played against Tron round 1, and I think the Tron matchup is pretty good. Especially if you're on the play, you can just kill them before they're able to do anything. And Karn isn't always a clean answer, because you can kill them through Karn. And
I suppose Ugin's not great either.
no, Ugin's actually really bad. It doesn't kill any of your creatures. The best would be Oblivion Stone, but even still, if you have an Inkmoth Nexus out, you can activate the Inkmoth Nexus and Oblivion Stone won't kill it because it's a
Right.
land, so you can save all of your modular counters. And I actually did that in game 1 versus Tron. I was able to get 9 counters from modular on the Inkmoth and still kill him next turn. So yeah, Tron doesn't have any one clean answer. They need to sort of match up all their answers like perfectly. So I feel like it's good against Tron.
Sure, and what are your thoughts? So Doge is noting that it loses hard to Thing in the Ice. What are your thoughts
Oh
on the
God.
Isn't Phoenix matchup?
Yeah, Thing in the Ice is rough. You kind of need Dismember versus Thing in the Ice. Um, Also, randomly, Eldrazi, uh, not Eldrazi Tron, but like Eldrazi decks that run Eldrazi Displacer just totally randomly destroy it because they can flicker all of your 0/0 creatures and make them lose all their counters.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Displacer seems good, and paired with
mhm.
like Stony Silence or Rest in Peace. Both of those seem to like, they probably hurt a little bit, but paired with enough other things can be backbreaking.
Yeah, yeah. The Graveyard Hate is surprisingly good because it stops Modular and it stops Hangerback Walker, stops those die triggers.
What about your Amulet Titan matchup? How do you feel that is?
I haven't honestly played enough. I think I've played Amulet Titan twice and I've lost both times. Um, yeah, I don't really know much about. I don't know enough to comment accurately on that though.
Sure, that's probably it's probably what every Amulet Titan player is hoping.
That they don't know the matchup. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we were talking some spoilers. Are there any new cards you're specifically excited about?
Hmm. Feather is going to be great for Commander.
Yes. Yeah,
I'm
we were
excited for that.
just talking about that one. Any like planeswalkers or
I think the new Planeswalker removal card, that double black, destroy any number of Planeswalkers. Yeah, the
yes,
Elder
the
Spell.
Elder Spell.
That looks pretty nasty. I could see that like being a force in Standard.
Sure. Yeah, we were kind of in agreement that we thought it would be good in Standard, but not elsewhere. Do you think any of the spoiled uh, gods are going to do anything? They just spoiled Oketra, and
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I am only seeing it in Italian. Chat, do you guys have the text on Oketra?